We are 12 rounds into the season. Let's say I speak about what's been happening, where I think things are going. Yeah, welcome back to my F1 season roundup and thought series. And starting off with Red Bull, they've gone backwards. They were like, for example, in Silverstone, the third quickest team, which if you would have said that to me at the beginning of the season, that come round 12 they'd be the third quickest team, I would not have believed you. But no, it's just the reality. They have fallen backwards, and you know, that's not exactly very good. What also isn't good is Perez in his mid-season slump. He needs to step it up. Like, let's just sum up the last 4 races for Checo. So Canada, his qualifying wasn't brilliant, and then in the race, he slid off the road, binned it himself, and that was it, done. In Barcelona, he did make Q3, but then he had a 3-place grid penalty from Canada to serve, and then he came back to, 8th, I think it was. Austria, qualifying wasn't spectacular, but I'm willing to put the race by the wayside because he did have, I believe, damage, which would have knocked around his pace, so I'm willing to put his crappy pace to the side there. But Silverstone, I don't even know what to say, to be honest. Like, Perez has scored less points over the last 4 races than Hülkenberg, than Stroll, than Alonso, and than Leclerc. Which, yeah, it might not be that a surprising thing to hear he scored less points than Leclerc, but Leclerc's had 4 rounds out of hell after doing a deal with the devil, clearly, to get that Monaco win. I mean, the rumor is that Perez's contract is at risk for 2025 if he doesn't pick it up by the summer break. I think Ricardo is the person to be rumoring to be replacing him, I believe. I mean, but honestly, if he doesn't pick it up by Spa, what are the chances that he could be replaced mid-season during the summer break? And I will just say, if Horner and Red Bull say, oh no, there's no plans for a mid-season swap, Perez will keep his seat for the rest of the year, can I just remind you all, Horner said that exact same thing about Pierre Gasly in the middle of 2019. We all know how that ended. But seriously, Perez has gotten way more chances than Gasly or Albon ever did. But it's not just for the sake of, keeping his drive that Perez needs to step up for the constructors as well, because despite McLaren constantly pulling out some form of error to lose the win and, not end up winning, McLaren can catch Red Bull. It's 12 rounds to go. The gap is catchable, especially if Perez doesn't step it up on McLaren having the speed that they do. But the Perez bashing aside, Red Bull as a whole need to step it up, and they need to be bringing performance, because recently they've kind of been relying on the max factor recently to make the difference. The Red Bull have not had the outright quickest car since China, really. Since then, it's been Max making the difference, and honestly, they cannot always just rely on that, because always relying on the Max factor and relying on him to bring the difference, that does risk burning him out. And as I said, we still have 12 races to go this year, and burning Max out probably won't help matters all that much. Speaking of Max, he has lost 2 races in a row for the first time in 2 years, and the similarities between this time and last time are a little bit crazy. Both times, the 2 races he lost was Silverstone and Austria and Silverstone. Just last time, it was the other way around. It was Silverstone, then Austria. Both times, the races were won by the same team. This time Mercedes, last time Ferrari back in 2022. Both times, the races were won by 2 different drivers. Sainz in Silverstone and Leclerc in Austria in 2022, and Russell in Austria and then Hamilton in Silverstone this year. And both times, the first driver of the 2 to get the win, so Sainz in Silverstone and then Russell in Austria, they both got lucky with late drama to get the win. I'm not taking anything away for those 2 wins, but I mean, Russell did get lucky with Max and Lando deciding to play fisticuffs to get that win. And then Sainz did get lucky with that late race safety car that, ended up with Ferrari not pitting Leclerc under that safety car, and when he'd been previously looking set for the win. But no, it's just, the similarities are a little bit funny. But look, while they need to step it up, Red Bull have been proving a couple things. One, why Max is a 3-time world champion. Verstappen has been proving that. And 2, they've been proving why they're not easy to beat, why Max isn't easy to beat. Because 1, he always gives it everything, and 2, it's more than just the performance of the car with Red Bull. It's everything else around it, you know, the strategy and all that going on, the communication and all that. They're normally always right with that side of things. And if you get you can make up for lack of performance with a good strategy. And you know, Red Bull did do that in Silverstone. Max still managed to finish second. He still managed to outscore McLaren, who we'll get to in a few minutes. But Red Bull, they need to step it up, because while the driver's title, I think Max will be fine with that. Constructor's title is questionable. Ferrari. 5 minutes. Could you stop being yourself for 5 fucking minutes? Seriously, Ferrari, can you please stop ferrari-ing? Specifically Charles, for 5 fucking minutes. This team has got to get their shit together. Because what the fuck happened after that Monaco win? It has been 4 rounds from hell for this team. You know, Sainz picked up some good points, you know, they got a podium in Austria, but rest assured, they got that podium because drivers ahead screwed up. Like, seriously, the last 4 races, it's been like mid-2022, meets early 2023. It's specifically for Charles, who, look, when it comes to that man, mentally, I'm still in Monaco because it's just the easiest way to cope. He sounds and looks so unbelievably done, and you cannot blame him. 3 non-scores in the last 4 races. There was the engine problems in Canada, and then there was also that just tire gamble that was at the last stage, well, screw it, why not kind of thing, because we're kind of out of it anyway. Kind of ignoring Spain. There was Austria, he got pinched at turn 1, and then just whatever that was with his strategy, I still don't know what the hell Ferrari were doing with his strategy in Austria. And then Silverstone, which I'll complain about in a minute. And the thing, a lot of the misfortune for him has been through no fault of his own. The only things where I think he has some fault is pushing too hard in Austria Q3, and then the decision to go on to the inters too early in Silverstone. Because, you know, when it comes to like decisions like that, you know, the driver's the one filling out the track, you know, he's part of that decision. However, he decided to / agreed to pit for inter tires then after being given the wrong bloody information from the pit wall on the damn weather. The rain was gonna get heavier, but it wasn't for another like 10 laps or so. And not like, well, the next lap, like he was told. The communication in that team, specifically on Leclerc's side of things, it seems, needs work. It's just, there's something wrong on that side of the garage. There's something just not going right on the number 16 side of the garage. I swear to God. Like, yeah, that call to box, as I said, he had a hand in making that choice. But at the end of the day, he made that choice after being given the wrong information. And not only that, but being given different information than the man on the other side of the bloody garage to him. Like, here's a transcript of like the radios between Charles and Brian, and then Carlos and Ricky. It was different information, and these 2 drivers drive for the same team. It's the Ferrari pit wall talking to both of them. Different engineers, but they're on the same pit wall. They'll be seeing the same information, surely. So what went wrong on Leclerc's side of things? I don't know, but look, all I can really say is Ferrari, you have got to get it together, or else you seriously could be passed by McLaren, which is actually looking really likely because they're not that far behind. And maybe even Mercedes. But look, trying to be a bit more optimistic about Ferrari and putting the complaining to the side, there is still 12 rounds to go. There's a lot of season left. And, you know, they did have a bit of a more rougher patch mid-last season. And, you know, they took a step back, they examined, and then they recovered. Maybe they can do that again, because, I mean, at Silverstone recently, the last race, they did take a step back to examine things and to do that experiments they did on Friday, kind of just throwing away Friday, as is all pointed out here in this article from Motorsport magazine. And it is true what is said here by Fred. You know, it's true what he's saying. They, as I said, they threw away Friday to do those experiments of comparing the Imola spec with the Barcelona spec. Hopefully they could have learned something from it, and so for the future, for recovering, so they can avoid, you know, falling backwards to maybe even 4th in the constructors after looking set for 2nd at the start of the year. Like, I do see them losing third to McLaren. I do see them staying in the top 3. That's providing they can get it together. And now on to McLaren. They have a quick car, but they're making a habit of ferrari-ing. And by ferrari-ing, I mean they're making a habit of somehow not winning despite having arguably the quickest car. Like, they have had the quickest or one of the quickest cars since Miami. In every race since then, since Imola then, they've had a chance to win really, but they haven't for just one reason or another, you know? They've had the quickest or one of the quickest cars since Miami. In every race since then, since Imola say, they've had a chance to win. They've been quickest or one of the quickest, but they just haven't been able to win for some reason or another because they haven't put it all together. Like, since and including Imola, there have been 3 different teams winning a race and none of them have been McLaren. Verstappen's won 3, and then Leclerc, Russell and Hamilton have all won 1 each. There's just been something that they did or did not do that has led to them, or there's been something that stopped them from winning. And it kind of goes to show that while McLaren have been racing at the front since Silverstone last year, really, they've not been fighting for wins until just recently, so they kind of have to learn how to do that again, learn how to fight for wins again and be able to win races. And just like example of when they've cost themselves the win, take Silverstone for example. Arguably cost themselves points. They could have won that race if you think about it. Maybe cost themselves points with the double stack that they, well, not pulling the double stack rather, and instead just leaving Oscar out there hanging for another lap. However, as I said, they could have got the win, and this tweet from Daniel Vellante points it out absolutely brilliantly. If they looking at Oscar's pace, if they put Lando Norris onto mediums as well, after they went off the inters, Lando probably could have won the race because Oscar was really bloody quick. And you're thinking, well, oh, then maybe Norris didn't have another set of mediums. He did. Like Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris went into that race with 2 new sets of mediums, or 2 sets of mediums. He'd used one early in the race. He still had another one he could have used. So why'd he go into the softs then? Maybe he thought the softs would be better, but looking at the pace that, say, Piastri had on the mediums, I mean, it's hard to think that Norris couldn't have probably won that. He probably could have won that race if he'd gone onto the mediums, but I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff, you know? Norris was looking pretty down after the race last Sunday, and it's understandable, you know, because he had a shot at winning his home race. He didn't do it. But I mean, look, his chance to win the British Grand Prix will come eventually. But in general for McLaren right now, honestly, performance-wise, quickest team, honestly. Quickest or one of the quickest in basically every circuit. And I do see them finishing at least second in the constructors at the moment, because they've really improved, like, since the beginning of the season, where I was kind of a little cautious about McLaren at the start of the season because I didn't quite trust them over the winter development, if you know what I mean. But no, honestly, second in the constructors minimum for them at the moment is what I see. Moving on. Well, welcome back, Mercedes. Where the bloody hell have you lot been? Like, when it comes to how many points or teams have scored, in the last 4 races, I believe Mercedes have scored the most. So yeah, welcome back, Mercedes. We've missed you. Well, there's probably some other who haven't, but whatever. Now, it's no secret over here on this channel that Leclerc is my favorite driver. However, I also make no secret of the fact that Lewis Hamilton is my second favorite driver. So needless to say, I was so bloody happy to see him winning the British Grand Prix. Of all the places where he could have ended his winless streak, the longest winless streak of, I think, his entire career, going back in not just Formula 1, back into junior racing as well, he ends at Silverstone. Of all the places he could have ended it, it was the British Grand Prix, his home race. 945 days between his most recent win and Saudi 2021. Like, that is mad when you take into account that before then, he had won a race every single season. He's also the first F1 driver to ever win a race after having reached 300 Grand Prix, and he's also the oldest winner of the 21st century at 39 years and 182 days. Not to mention that it was his 12th straight podium at Silverstone, which is a record for the most consecutive podiums at a circuit, and it was his 9th win at Silverstone, which is a record record for the most wins at any circuit. Well, at a singles track rather. George Russell, meanwhile, heartbreak for him at Silverstone, but he got a win in Austria, as I said earlier in the video. And honestly, that, my friends, was the dictionary definition of right place, right time. He was just minding his own business, going along in third. Then the two ahead of him play fisticuffs, fall off the road, and then Toto's on the radio. You can win this, you can win this. Talk about right place, right time. This team has made such an amazing comeback from the start of the season where, honestly, a lot of us were kind of writing them off. Like, I did have kind of high hopes for Mercedes at the start of the season. Like, coming into the season, my hopes for Mercedes were a little bit too low. Expectations, rather. My expectations for Mercedes were a little bit too high, I think. But they are kind of meeting those expectations now, I'm not gonna lie. So, they've proved why you do not count them out. And as I said, a lot of us kind of were, I think, at the start of the year. They were looking kind of set for fourth best, and now they're looking like they can target for third, or maybe even second. A lot of that depends on how Ferrari come back or recover, or if they just continue ferrari-ing. Of course, this comeback in Mercedes' performance and them being a lot more up there now again, but might bring in, might lead to some thinking, oh, will they still sign Kimi Antonelli into that seat? Young guy, rookie, could be a bit more risky. I say still throw him in the car. Throw him in at the deep end. And the reason why I say that is for 2026. Look, if you're gonna get Kimi Antonelli into Formula 1 in 2025, then get him in with Mercedes. Just get him straight in there, and just give him a year, give him that first year to just, bed himself into the team, get used to driving for Mercedes, get used to driving in Formula 1, and that way, when 2026 rolls around and the new regulations, which, the word is, if the word is to be believed, Mercedes have something good cooking, then he's more bedded into the team. He's already there. He's, a bit more used to it, more used to Formula 1, and it could be a easier transition for him into the new regs, if you know what I mean. And maybe an easier transition for Mercedes as well, as opposed to if they say just got someone for 25 and then got Antonelli in for 26, after us having him spend a year at another team, say. And on that, congrats to Antonelli on getting his first F2 win. Meanwhile, off in the sharp end, you hate Aston Martin. They've just nabbed Enrico Cardile from Ferrari. He's going to be starting as their chief technical officer next year. Frankly, they can do with the help, because this team, it's been not great. I mean, it's not been outright terrible either, but it's not been brilliant. This team is just a little bit confusing to me. I don't really care what to think about Aston Martin at the minute, because sometimes they're not so bad, sometimes they're crap. It just kind of depends on the mood of the weekend, really, I think. I mean, Alonso now being beaten on the semi-regular by Stroll is strange. Not saying that Stroll's a bad driver or anything, but I'm just saying, you'd expect Fernando Alonso to be able to beat Stroll, pretty good, but it's been the other way around quite a few times recently. And I mean, Alonso, from what I've seen, hasn't been exactly just hiding his feelings all that much in the media. Alonso has just been kind of pretty open and honest recently, saying, oh no, we'll be, between 8th to 12th and all that. He said that, what was it, like Barcelona he said that or something? I don't know, it's just, I don't really care what to think about Aston Martin at the minute. They're just a little bit strange. They have got work to do, and they have sugar-free Red Bull. Yes, I'm still calling them that. Like, what, 30 season points ahead of them now? It's not a period gap. It's almost one weekend's worth of maximum points, if that makes any sense. But, look, it's a gap that it's one really good weekend for VCARB away from being a little bit more of a sweaty gap, if you know what I mean. A little bit more of a nerve-wracking gap for Aston Martin. Like, oh, we can actually be overtaken here. But performance-wise, they've slipped backwards. Them and Ferrari right now seem to be competing for the Devolution Championship for the crown there. They can stop themselves from slipping further back performance-wise by taking steps forward and actually improving the performance to stop VCARB from overtaking them. Or, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I'd never call that team the same thing in the same video. A team that's been, to be fair, not been all that bad. They've scored in, 8 of the 12 races so far held this year. Daniel Ricciardo's been improving. Yuki Tsunoda has still been doing really good. It really wouldn't surprise me to see this team AlphaTauri, whatever you want to call them, closing up to Aston Martin, challenging for 5th place. Because they seem to have a decent car. It can be a little bit up and down for them sometimes, but overall it's been decent for them. Because with the way VCARB is going, they can close up to Aston Martin if they don't screw it, if you know what I mean. But they also kind of keep an eye on ahead of them, and that brings me very nicely onto Haas. who are only 4 points behind them, and they've been doing quite good. They've, at the moment to me, gotten themselves into a place where they're not catchable by 8 to 10. Unless there's some mad improvements from those teams. And this is largely thanks to Hülkenberg. He is doing amazing this season. He's doing really, really good. Since round 2 in Saudi Arabia, Hülkenberg has finished 11th or higher in all the races he has finished. In the last 2 rounds, he's finished 6th in both of them. And with those 2 6th place finishes, he has scored more points in the last 2 races alone than Perez and McLaren have in the last 4. Which, okay, yeah, not all that difficult when one of them is speedrunning how to lose your Red Bull drive and the other one has had the 4 rounds out of hell. But no, seriously. Hülkenberg, all the appreciation to him, like moment of appreciation for Nico Hülkenberg, because he has just been getting on with it and flying under the radar a lot of the time. He's just been flying under the radar, he's been going pretty unnoticed, and he's just been getting on with it, doing the business, providing the results, giving the points to Haas, and, you know, points for Haas, that means the ability to challenge for, you know, they're currently 7th in the Constructors. They can legitimately think about 6th, I think, because they're not that far ahead of VCARB, because yeah, well, I can see VCARB challenging Aston Martin and closing further up to them. With the way Haas are, I could see Haas maybe going with them and try to keep VCARB on their toes for 6th at the very least. And then with the bottom 3 teams in Alpine, tell you what, I'm impressed. I mean, prior to Silverstone, Gasly was on a run of 4 straight points finishes. Ocon has scored a couple more points, and they've definitely improved from the start of the season, where it was dreadful for them. It was absolutely dreadful. I mean, there's still aspects where it could be better. I mean, they apparently only have 1 lightweight chassis, and the other 2 chassis they have are a bit heavier, so one driver's always losing out in that regard. But like, at the moment, I don't see them getting higher than 8th, because I really do think they're in that battle with Williams and Sauber for 8th, 9th, 10th. And then Williams is just, they're a little bit strange at the moment. I don't really care what to think about Williams, if I'm being perfectly honest. In terms of years to come, they've got potential. But in terms on Williams, I saw a clip that Jeremy Clarkson saying at the British Grand Prix that apparently he knows that Adrian Newey is looking for his house hunting in Oxfordshire. And Oxford, that's where Williams is based, is it not? Newey to Williams? Back to Williams, rather? I mean, who knows? But he's definitely not going to Sauber, who I don't notice these guys. Like, literally, I never notice them. They've got the brightest car on the entire bloody grid, arguably, with that green stands out. And they're just completely unnoticeable. They're just there. They don't do anything. They don't, you know, do anything spectacular. It's like they're still not scored any points. Boss Ass is now 21st in a 20-car championship. I do not notice these guys at all. I continue with my statement that this is the most anonymous team on the entire grid. And look, I say it's a battle for 8th between Alpine, Williams, and Sauber, but honestly, I think the battle for 8th is more just between Alpine and Williams, because I don't know, I just don't see Sauber scoring points. I just don't. Performance-wise, they're not great. And being not great performance-wise in a field that is quite close at the bottom, it's close at the top and it's close at the bottom, that's not great, you know? And before we end the video, here's how the standings all shape up at the moment. Max Verstappen is still leading the way in the Drivers' Championship on 255 points. And Lando Norris has now leapt up into 2nd place on 171 points. Charles Leclerc is still on 150 points like he's been on since, well, after the Austria sprint. In 3rd place, and he's got his teammate Carlos Sainz only 4 points behind him in 4th place on 146 points. Oscar Piastri is now up into 5th place in the standings on 124 points. He's 6 points ahead of Sergio Perez. It slips backwards to 6th place and now on 118 points. In 7th place is George Russell on 111 points, while his teammate Lewis Hamilton is 1 point behind him in 8th on 110 points. Rounding out the top 10, we've got the 2 Aston Martins, the Fernando Alonso on 45 points, and then Lance Stroll on 23 points. He's got Nico Hülkenberg only 1 point behind him in 11th on 22 points, and then Yuki Tsunoda is sitting on 20 points in 12th place. Daniel Ricciardo is in 13th on 11 points. Then you have Oliver Behrman in 14th place on 6 points. Also on 6 points, you're going to find Pierre Gasly for for Alpine in 15th place, and then 16th is Kevin Magnussen on 5 points. 4 points go the way of Alexander Albon in 17th. 18th, you're going to find the other Alpine driver, Esteban Ocon, who is the last of the point scorers, because Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargent, and Valtteri Bottas are still yet to get off the ground. And now the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull Racing lead the way on 373 points, while Ferrari are still in second, but only barely. 302 points for them, playing McLaren in third with 295. Pretty close there. Mercedes are also coming up as well on 221 points in fourth place, with the top 5 is being rounded off by Aston Martin on 68 points. Sugar-free Red Bull are in 6th place on 31 points, while the 4-point gap back to Haas in 7th on 27 points. Alpine are on 9 points in 8th place, while Williams are the last of the point scorers in the team's championship on 4 points in 9th, while 10th place you're going to find Sauber, who have scored nothing. But that's going to do it for this edition of my In F1 Season Roundup and Thoughts series. Next up, I'm thinking from here through the halfway point of the season now, I'm thinking with the way the races work out in the second half of the year, I'm thinking to go for the next one after Singapore. So that's what I'm thinking, but that's for later. For now, let me get your thoughts in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.